Have you ever heard a song from a decade before you were born and felt your heart ache with a strange, sweet sadness? A feeling of missing it. You look at a faded, sepia-toned photograph of a city street in the 1920s. You see the strange hats, the old-fashioned cars, the blurred faces of strangers long since turned to dust, and you feel a pull, a deep, quiet, and impossible longing. A sense of recognition, as if you are looking at a postcard from a home you can't quite remember. You watch an old movie. The way the light looks, the way the actors speak with that crisp, transatlantic accent, the sound of the orchestra swelling, it feels, in that moment, more real, more solid than the world outside your window. You find yourself missing the analog warmth of a world you never touched, the romance of an era you only know through stories. This feeling, this beautiful, gentle paradox, has a name: anemoia. It is defined as a nostalgia for a time you have never lived, a homesickness for a home you have never seen, a word for a feeling that should not be possible. It is not a memory. You were not there. It is the echo of a memory, a beautiful borrowed ghost that lives in your house. At night, when the sharp edges of the present day dissolve, when you are lying in bed and the world outside has finally gone quiet, this feeling comes visiting. It doesn't arrive with a crash. It seeps in like a mist under the door. It sits with you in the dark. It doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't demand your attention. It just aches. A sweet, wistful, gentle ache that is as comforting as it is confusing. Why? Why do we feel this phantom nostalgia? Why do we miss the hiss of a vinyl record we never owned, or the scent of a steam train we never rode? Why does a past that is not ours feel so much like a home we have lost? This feeling is a contradiction. It is the pain of a phantom limb. You are mourning something you never possessed. The Germans have a word that goes even deeper, a word that captures the feeling behind the feeling. Sense this. It means a deep, inconsolable longing, but for something unnamed. An indefinable what? A homesickness for a place you can't name, a time you can't place, a life you can't describe. It is the yearning for an ideal, a utopia that is always just out of reach, perhaps in the past, perhaps in the future. When you feel anemoia, you are feeling Sehnsucht for history. You are walking through your own life, but you feel out of step, displaced in time. You see the glowing screens, the instant messages, the relentless, fragmented speed of the now, and you feel a quiet, internal resistance, a sense of being unplugged from the current moment. You might feel that you were simply born in the wrong era. You are haunted by the symphony of static from a dead radio station. You are in love with the grain on a forgotten film, the soft, blurred edges of a Polaroid photograph. This is not a flaw in your mind. It is not a sign that you are broken or living in a fantasy. It is a sign that you are listening. Deeply, you are listening to the resonant echoes of the human story. You are hearing the music that was played in rooms you never entered, by people you never knew. And something in that music is speaking directly to you. It is a signal, transmitted across time, and you have become a quiet receiver. The logical part of your brain tries to shut it down. It says, "This is silly. You can't miss what you never had." But the heart doesn't operate on that kind of logic. The heart operates on feeling, on resonance, and the feeling is undeniably real. So, where does this signal come from? What is this familiar stranger, this ghost from a time that is not yours? The ancient poets, in their wisdom, knew this feeling well. They understood this ache. They gave it a geography, a name, a place in the long, sad story of humanity. The poet Hesiod, who lived ages ago, looked back on this long, winding journey and saw not one mankind, but many. He divided our existence into 5 distinct epochs, and his story begins with a place that sounds very much like the one your heart is longing for. He called it the Golden Age. In those days, he wrote, men lived like gods themselves, free from pain, untouched by age, and unburdened by toil. The earth gave forth her bounty without coaxing. There was no need for laws or swords. There was no hunger, no sickness, no grief. When their time came, they did not wither or suffer, but died as if falling into sleep. Theirs was a life of harmony. Does that not sound familiar? Is that not the world you are visiting in your dreams? A world without the anxiety, the striving, the constant pressure of our modern lives? Hesiod tells us that this age passed. The Golden Age was followed by a Silver Age, a time of mortals who lacked the wisdom and refused to honor the gods. Then came the Bronze Age, a time of creatures of war, whose hearts seemed cast from the same metal, a time of blood and ash. And then came the age that perhaps haunts our imagination most of all, the Heroic Age. This was not a time of perfect peace, but it was a time of perfect meaning. It was an interlude of glory before the fall. These mortals were greater than those who came before or after. They were the demigods, the sons and daughters of gods and men. This was the age of Perseus and Heracles, of Theseus and Atalanta, of Jason and the Argonauts. They fought great wars against monsters. Their lives were brief, and their fates often cruel, but their names would echo through time. Their stories mattered. And then, Hesiod says, came our age, the age we are living in now, the Iron Age. He called this a time of sorrow and toil, a world where men now labor from dawn to dusk, growing old with pain and fear. In the Iron Age, he wrote, bonds break easily, lies are many, oaths are cheap, justice has averted her eyes. When you are lying awake at night, scrolling through a world of arguments, of curated perfection, of disconnection, does this not feel true? Does it not feel like we are living in a time of sorrow and toil? Perhaps your anemoia, then, is not a simple fantasy. Perhaps it is an ancient spiritual homesickness. Perhaps you are a child of the Iron Age, and your soul is quietly, instinctively, mourning the loss of the Golden Age, a world without striving. Or perhaps you are longing for the Heroic Age, a world where your life could have a clear, mythic purpose, a world where you could fight a real monster instead of just the abstract, unseen monsters of anxiety and debt and doubt. But is this longing true? Or is it a beautiful, necessary lie? A comfort we build for ourselves? The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned us to be wary of our own minds. He knew that we are masters of self-deception. We lie to ourselves long before we lie to others. We rehearse these lies so often, we come to believe them. Perhaps this anemoia is a kind of mask. A mask we hold up against the harsh, disappointing light of our own lives. Nietzsche understood that to survive in society, people create a version of themselves they hope will be accepted. But maybe, to survive our own minds, we create a version of the past we wish we had. Our present is messy. It is mundane. It is not heroic. We are not Perseus. We are not slaying Medusa. We are answering emails. We are stuck in traffic. So to cope, we invent a place where we could have been heroic, where we could have been part of the Golden Age. It is a story we tell ourselves. Nietzsche saw that excessive virtue is often disguised vanity. Perhaps our excessive nostalgia is a disguised vanity too, a way to feel more profound, more sensitive than the shallow modern world around us. By claiming to belong to another, better time, we are gently claiming to be better than our own time. It is a form of self-deception, but as Nietzsche understood, it is not an evil. It is a defense. It is a way to keep functioning in a painful world. It is a beautiful, handcrafted mask that makes the Iron Age bearable. And what are the heroes we long for? What if we are misunderstanding their stories? We long for the clarity of Heracles, the mightiest of heroes. We see his 12 labors as grand adventures, but we forget why he did them. He did them as penance. He was driven by a madness sent by a god, a fit of rage in which he slew his wife and children. His entire life was not an adventure. It was an act of atonement. We long for the romance of Jason and the Argonauts. We see the glory of the Golden Fleece, but we forget the end of his story. We forget that his wife Medea, in a storm of vengeance, murdered her own sons and fled. We forget that Jason, the great hero, died, broken, forgotten in silence, beneath the bones of his past. We long for the tragedy of the House of Thebes. We are fascinated by Oedipus, the man who answered the riddle of the Sphinx. But we forget the cost of his story, that he slew the man, his true father Laius, and married Jocasta, his mother, that he blinded himself and died a wretched figure. The past we are longing for was not better. It was not simpler. It was not more golden. It was just like our own time, filled with blood and sorrow and confusion and madness. So why? Why do we still long for it? Because in all of that pain, there was meaning. Their suffering was epic. Their fates were long foretold. They were not victims of random chance. They were players in a grand cosmic drama, watched by the gods themselves. They were bound by fate. And that is what we are missing. We live in the Iron Age, an age of sorrow and toil. But it is also an age where the gods, if they still watch, do so with silence. The world, once filled with myth and magic, has grown quiet. The old temples are closed. The oracles are silent. The gods, it seems, have faded. Our suffering feels small. It feels random. It feels mundane. When we suffer, it is not because a god has cursed our bloodline. It is because of a spreadsheet or a text message or a chemical imbalance. Your anemoia is not a homesickness for the past. It is a homesickness for meaning. It is the cry of your own profound spirit, a spirit that feels trapped in a mundane play and longs for an epic one. It is the part of you that wants to be a hero, not a statistic. It is the part of you that wants your choices to matter, to echo, to be part of a great story. This is not a flaw in your mind. It is not a sign that you are broken. It is, perhaps, the most human and hopeful sign of all. It is the ache of a soul that knows it was made for more than just this. And in the deep, quiet hours of the night, when the world is asleep, that soul is allowed to whisper. It is allowed to dream. It is allowed to feel homesick, ... For a home it has only ever known in its heart. It is a beautiful, borrowed ghost, and you have given it a home. This feeling is a contradiction. It is the pain of a phantom limb. You are mourning something you never possessed. The logical part of your brain tries to shut it down. It says, "This is silly. You can't miss what you never had." It tries to convince you that this is just fantasy, a simple trick of the mind. But the heart doesn't operate on that kind of logic. The heart operates on feeling, on resonance. And the feeling, the ache ... is undeniably real. The Germans have a word that goes even deeper, a word that captures the feeling behind the feeling. Sehnsucht. It means a deep, inconsolable longing, but for something unnamed. An indefinable what? A homesickness for a place you can't name, a time you can't place, a life you can't describe. It is the yearning for an ideal, a utopia that is always just out of reach, perhaps in the past, perhaps in the future. When you feel anemoia, that homesickness for a time you've never lived, you are feeling Sehnsucht for history. You are walking through your own life, but you feel ... out of step, displaced in time. You see the glowing screens, the instant messages, the relentless, fragmented speed of the now, and you feel a quiet, internal resistance, a sense of being unplugged from the current moment. You might feel that you were simply born in the wrong era. This feeling is the heart of your question. Where does this signal come from? What is this familiar stranger, this ghost from a time that is not yours? Is it a beautiful lie we tell ourselves? Or is it a whisper of a truth we don't yet understand? Let us explore that first possibility, the one our logical brain insists upon, that this feeling is a beautiful, necessary lie. We are, after all, masters of self-deception. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned us of this with a sharp, knowing eye. He understood that people don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. We rehearse these lies so often, we come to believe them. We do this, he said, not because we are evil, but as a defense. A way to keep functioning in a painful world. Perhaps your anemoia is a form of this, a comforting, beautiful lie. The past we long for is not the real past. It is a curated gallery. It is a story, edited to perfection. When you feel that pull for the 1920s, you are not longing for the 1920s. You are longing for the idea of it. You are longing for the aesthetic of the Great Gatsby. You see the shimmer of the flapper dresses, the Art Deco architecture, the champagne glasses, the sound of jazz spilling out onto a manicured lawn on a hot summer night. You see the glamour, the rebellion, the romance. You do not see what is just outside the frame. You do not smell the unhygienic streets, a world before widespread sanitation. You do not feel the scratch of the wool clothing, the lack of central heating, the constant low-level pain of a toothache in an era before modern dentistry. You do not experience the rampant diseases that are now just words in a history book, the crushing inequality, the profound lack of comforts and rights we take for granted. The past, in our imagination, has been scrubbed clean. It is a story that has been edited. We have cut out all the boring parts, all the terrifying parts, all the painful parts. We are left with only the highlights, the aesthetic, the feeling. We do this because our present is so relentlessly real. It is unfiltered. We live in a world that is chaotic, overwhelming, and often deeply disappointing. We are buried in a 24-hour avalanche of information, of bad news, of other people's curated perfection. We feel lonely in a crowd of billions, connected to everything but attached to nothing. Our world is loud, fast, and disposable. So we retreat. We build a psychological sanctuary in a past that has been dead long enough to become perfect. It is safe. It cannot disappoint us. It cannot send us a stressful notification at midnight. It is a story that has already been written, its ending known, its tragedies softened by time. Nietzsche also said that every profound spirit needs a mask. We wear them to survive society. Perhaps anemoia is a kind of mask we wear for ourselves. We put on the mask of a 1940s soul or a Victorian heart because the mask of the modern person feels ill-fitting. It feels inauthentic. By claiming to belong to another, better time, we are gently claiming to be better than our own time. We are saying, I am not shallow like this world. I am deep like the one I long for. It's a form of self-deception, but it is a comforting one. But what if it's not a lie? What if the feeling is real, just borrowed? This is the second possibility, that the signal is not a lie, but a story you have absorbed so deeply it feels like your own. You are not physically there, but your mind was. Think of your mind as a house with many, many rooms, and you are its quiet, unwitting architect. You have spent your entire life consuming these pasts. You have read the great novels of the 19th century. You have watched the classic films of the 40s and 50s. You have listened to your parents and grandparents' music, the songs they played when they were young and falling in love. Your mind, in its incredible capacity to build worlds, has taken all of this data, all these images, sounds, and emotions, and it has built a room for each one. You have a room in your head for the 1940s, built by black and white movies and the sound of big band swing. It is a room of shadows and fog, trench coats and fedoras, heroic sacrifice, and the bittersweet pain of a goodbye at a train station. You've never experienced this, but you watched Casablanca. You felt the ache as the plane took off. Your brain does not know the difference. It does not draw a sharp, clear line between a life you lived and a story you felt. If you felt the emotion, your brain catalogs it as an experience. You have a room for the 1980s, built by synth pop and John Hughes films. It is a room of neon pink and teal, of analog synthesizers, and the bittersweet, epic ache of teenage endings. You weren't there, but you felt the triumph at the end of The Breakfast Club. So when you hear that song from the 70s and feel that nostalgic ache, you are not haunted by the past. You are haunted by art. You are homesick for a place that was built for you by a novelist. You are missing a person who was written by a screenwriter. You are longing for a feeling crafted by a musician. The longing you feel is the echo of a beautiful, powerful story that you absorbed so deeply, it became a part of your own identity. It is a borrowed ghost, and you have given it a home in the quiet, fire-lit rooms of your own imagination. You are not just a consumer of these stories. You have become their keeper. And in a world that often lacks deep, romantic, or grand narratives, you are simply visiting the rooms in your mind where those narratives still live and breathe. But this still feels ... incomplete. It feels too simple. Because sometimes the feeling is not for a glamorous, curated time. Sometimes it is a longing for something older, deeper, stranger, a longing for a time before film, before records, a longing for a silent, snow-covered forest, for a world lit only by fire. This brings us to the third possibility, the one that whispers in the deep night. What if the signal is not a lie, and not borrowed but inherited? What if it is a whisper of a truth we don't yet understand? What if you are an archive? What if your very DNA is a library, a living manuscript holding the quiet, unread stories of all the lives that came before you? This idea is not as fanciful as it sounds. The field of epigenetics studies how behaviors and environments can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. These changes can, in some cases, be passed down. We know trauma can be inherited, a shadow passed from a grandparent to a parent to a child, a fear of something you have never experienced. If a fear can be passed down, why not a longing? Why not a preference? Why not a simple, quiet, cellular memory of peace? The ancient poets sensed this. They too felt this ache. The poet Hesiod, who lived ages ago, looked back on this long, winding journey and saw not one mankind, but many. He divided our existence into 5 distinct epochs, and his story begins with a place that sounds very much like the one your heart is longing for. He called it the Golden Age. In those days, he wrote, men lived like gods themselves, free from pain, untouched by age, and unburdened by toil. The earth gave forth her bounty without coaxing. There was no need for laws or swords. There was no hunger, no sickness, no grief. When their time came, they did not wither or suffer, but died as if falling into sleep. Theirs was a life of harmony. Does that not sound familiar? Is that not the world you are visiting in your dreams? A world without the anxiety, the striving, the constant pressure of our modern lives? Hesiod tells us that this age passed. The Golden Age was followed by a Silver Age, a time of mortals who lacked the wisdom and refused to honor the gods. Then came the Bronze Age, a time of creatures of war whose hearts seemed cast from the same metal, a time of blood and ash. And then came the age that perhaps haunts our imagination most of all, the Heroic Age, This was not a time of perfect peace, but it was a time of perfect meaning. It was an interlude of glory before the fall. These mortals were greater than those who came before or after. They were the demigods, the sons and daughters of gods and men. This was the age of Perseus and Heracles, of Theseus and Atalanta, of Jason and the Argonauts. They fought great wars against monsters. Their lives were brief, and their fates often cruel, but their names would echo through time. Their stories mattered. And then, Hesiod says, came our age. The age we're living in now. The Iron Age. He called this a time of sorrow and toil. A world where men now labor from dawn to dusk, growing old with pain and fear. In the Iron Age, he wrote, bonds break easily. Lies are many, oaths are cheap. Justice has averted her eyes. When you are lying awake at night, scrolling through a world of arguments, of curated perfection, of disconnection ... Does this not feel true? Does it not feel like we are living in a time of sorrow and toil? Perhaps your anemoia, then, is not a simple fantasy. Perhaps it is an ancient, spiritual homesickness. Perhaps you are a child of the Iron Age, and your soul is quietly, instinctively, mourning the loss of the Golden Age, a world without striving. Or perhaps you are longing for the heroic age, a world where your life could have a clear, mythic purpose, a world where you could fight a real monster instead of just the abstract, unseen monsters of anxiety and debt and doubt. What if your sudden, inexplicable ache for the 19th century countryside is the echo of a dozen generations of ancestors who lived and died by the rhythm of the seasons, who knew the smell of the earth after rain and the deep dark silence of a world without electricity? What if that deep pre-industrial peace is encoded in your biology, and your modern life, with its artificial light and constant noise, is creating a static that this ancient part of you is trying to escape? This is your signal. This is your familiar stranger. It is the part of you that knows it was made for more than just this. This feeling, this anemoia, is not a sickness. It is not a flaw. It is a sign of a deep and sensitive soul. A soul that is listening to the resonant echoes of the human story. You are hearing the music that was played in rooms you never entered, by people you never knew. And something in that music ... is speaking directly to you. It is a whisper of a truth we are, all of us, just beginning to understand. The first and most logical answer to your homesickness is that we are in love with a beautiful lie. The past we long for is not the real past. It is not the complicated, messy, difficult reality of what it was to be alive in that time. It is a curated gallery. Think of your mind as a grand museum. And in that museum, you have a special wing dedicated to history. But this wing was not curated by a historian, committed to objective truth. It was curated by a poet, a dreamer, by you. You have selected only the most beautiful paintings, the most romantic sculptures, the most harmonious songs. And you have hidden the rest in a dark, dusty attic. When you feel anemoia, you are not visiting the attic with its spiders and its dust and its broken, forgotten objects. You are taking a slow, comforting walk through your own perfect gallery. When you look at that photograph of the 1920s, you see the rebellious energy of the flapper dress, the geometric glamour of Art Deco architecture, the sound of jazz spilling into the night air. You imagine yourself at one of Gatsby's parties, a champagne glass in hand, feeling the electric pulse of a new, modern world. You do not see the reality. You do not feel the scratch of the wool clothing or the rigid, painful constraints of the social etiquette that still lingered. You do not smell the unhygienic streets of cities struggling to cope with an industrial boom, a world before many modern sanitation standards. You do not experience the rampant disease, a world where a simple infection could be a death sentence, where antibiotics were not yet a miracle. You are not seeing the crushing inequality that fueled the entire spectacle, or the violent, organized crime that was born from prohibition. The glamour you see was a tiny, glittering island in a vast ocean of labor and hardship. You are not longing for the 1950s. You are longing for the idea of the 1950s. You are longing for the aesthetic of it. You see the clean, suburban lawns, the classic cars with their beautiful sweeping lines. You hear the innocent rebellion of early rock and roll on a jukebox. You long for a time of supposed simplicity and analog warmth, a world before the internet, a world where people looked at each other instead of at their phones. You are not imagining the other side of that simplicity. You are not feeling the stifling, crushing conformity of those suburbs, the silent, desperate anxiety of women trapped in roles they did not choose, the terror of the Cold War, the paranoia of nuclear annihilation, the duck and cover drills in schools, the profound institutionalized injustices that were simply the law. The past, in our imagination, has been scrubbed clean. This phenomenon is so common it has a name. Psychologists call it rosy retrospection. It is the mind's tendency to remember the past as being far better than it actually was. Our brains are wired to do this. They gently file away the memories of the daily, mundane irritations, the boredom, the discomfort, the low-level anxiety, and they place a spotlight on the highlights. The first kiss, the perfect sunset, the feeling of that one song. It is a story that has been edited. We have cut out all the boring parts, all the terrifying parts, all the painful parts. We are left with only the highlights, the aesthetic, the feeling. Why do we do this? Why does our mind build this beautiful, false sanctuary? We do this because our present is so relentlessly real. It is unfiltered. It is loud. We live in a world that is chaotic, overwhelming, and often deeply disappointing. We are not just living in the Iron Age that the poet Hesiod described, a time of sorrow and toil. We are living in an iron age with high-speed internet. We are subjected to a constant 24-hour stream of global anxiety, political outrage, and curated, perfect-looking lives on social media that make our own feel dull and broken in comparison. We are buried in information. We are paralyzed by choice. And in this hyper-connected world, we feel lonely in a crowd of billions. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw this in us. He wrote that most people are actors in a play they didn't write. We are trying to perform the role of the happy, successful modern person, but the script is exhausting. The lights are too bright, and we are forgetting our lines. So we retreat. We build a sanctuary in a past that has been dead long enough to become perfect. It is a safe harbor. The 1940s cannot send you a stressful email. The 19th century cannot flood your feed with bad news. The past is safe precisely because it is finished. It is a story that has already been written. The ending is known. The tragedies have been softened by time, becoming romantic rather than simply painful. When you re-watch a favorite movie or reread a favorite book, a large part of the comfort comes from knowing what is going to happen. There are no surprises. There is no anxiety. You are just relaxing into a story you love. Your curated past is the ultimate comfort movie. You are not longing for the reality of a different time. You are longing for the safety of a finished story. Think of the old myths. The poets looked back on the heroic age as an interlude of glory. They told stories of Perseus and Heracles, Hector and Achilles. Their fates were often cruel, yes, but their lives had meaning. Their destinies were long foretold. They were watched by gods. There was a clear, epic narrative. Our world feels narrativeless. We are not heroes fighting monsters. We are just people trying to get by, feeling small in a world that feels vast and indifferent. The gods, If they still watch, do so with silence. We are not longing for a different time. We are longing for a simpler story. We are longing for a story that makes sense. A story with a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. A story where we know our role. A story that feels human. This beautiful lie, this curated gallery, is not a flaw in your mind. It is not a weakness. It is a profound act of self-care. It is your mind's way of protecting you. The philosopher Nietzsche, in his deep understanding of human nature, knew that we don't just wear masks for other people. We wear them for ourselves. He believed that people don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves, and they do this as a defense, a way to keep functioning in a painful world. Your anemoia is a kind of psychological shelter. It is your mind gently building a quiet, fire-lit room, furnished with beautiful, harmless ghosts, and giving you a place to rest from the cold, relentless wind of the present. It is okay to visit this gallery. It is okay to find comfort in the grain of an old film or the hiss of a vinyl record. It doesn't mean you are broken. It means you are human. It is a sign that you have a sensitive soul, one that is searching not for escape, but for comfort, for meaning, and for a story that feels like home. So we have touched the first, most logical answer, that our homesickness for the past is a love affair with a curated gallery, a beautiful, edited story we tell ourselves to find comfort in our chaotic iron age. But this answer, while true, can feel a little cold. It feels clinical. It explains the mechanics of our self-deception, but it doesn't quite honor the depth of the feeling. Because sometimes, this feeling is not just a vague, rosy-hued preference. It is incredibly specific. It is a sharp, sudden ache for a world you know, intimately, you have never seen. This brings us to our second, and perhaps more comforting, possibility. What if the feeling is real? What if it is a memory, just not your own? What if it is a borrowed memory? You were not physically there. Your feet never touched the cobblestones of that 1940s street. You never breathed the air of that Victorian ballroom. But your mind was there. Think of your mind as a vast, quiet house with many, many rooms. And you are its architect, its designer, its quiet, unwitting curator. And over the course of your life, you have built and furnished these rooms with all the stories you have ever loved. You have spent your entire life consuming these pasts. You have read the great novels. You have watched the classic films. You have lost yourself in television series. You have listened to your parents' and grandparents' music, the songs they played when they were young and falling in love, the songs that formed their emotional worlds. Your mind, in its incredible, magical capacity to build worlds, has taken all of this data, all these images, sounds, and emotions, and it has built a room for each one. Let us walk through this house together. Here is the 1940s room. You built this room. It was built by Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon and 100 other black and white films. It is a room of high contrast shadows and soft, gauzy light. It is a room where the men wear fedoras and the women have a strength that is both sharp and wary. The air in this room is filled with the sound of a melancholy piano and the low hum of a propeller plane waiting on a foggy runway. You have never lived in the 1940s. You have no real memory of World War II, or the rationing, or the specific day-to-day anxieties of that time. But you have been in this room. You have stood in that airport hangar with Rick and Ilsa. You have felt the staggering, romantic, adult ache of their goodbye. That feeling of sacrificing your own heart for a cause that is bigger than you. When you feel anemoia for the 1940s, you are not missing the time. You are missing the feeling you had in that room. You are homesick for a world that contained that kind of noble, bittersweet sacrifice. A world that felt ... profound. Let's walk down the hall. Here is the 1980s room. Many of us have this room. even if we were born 20 years later. You built it from John Hughes films, from The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You built it from the sound of analog synthesizers and gated reverb drums and the soaring, hopeful voice of Peter Gabriel on the Say Anything soundtrack. It is a room of neon and denim jackets and the epic, earth-shattering importance of teenage emotions. You were not there. You never taped a song off the radio. You never had to navigate high school without a cell phone. But you know what it feels like. You know the feeling of that Saturday detention. You know the bittersweet triumph of that final fist pump in the air. You have felt the romance of a grand gesture with a boombox held high. When you feel that strange pull for the 80s, you are not missing the Cold War or the greed is good ethos. You are missing the feeling of a world where your emotions felt ... grand. A world where a high school crush felt as important, as heroic, as any Greek epic. A world where things had a simple, bittersweet, and deeply felt ending. And here, perhaps, is the 19th century room. You built this one from Jane Austen and the Brontë sisters. It is a room of quiet, unspoken longing. A room where a single brushing touch of a hand is more electric than anything in our modern, oversaturated world. It's a room of handwritten letters, of carriage rides in the rain, of a love that is slow, deep, and based on the revelation of a person's true character. You are not longing for the reality of that time, for the corsets, the lack of medicine, the rigid, suffocating social structures. You are longing for the feeling of that room, a feeling of depth, a longing for a world that moved slowly enough for you to truly know someone, a world where love was a careful, patient, and profound act of discovery. So you see, your mind is a house full of these borrowed homes. And this is not just a fantasy. This is a real, measurable, psychological process. When you read a story, your brain does not sit back and passively observe. It participates. Neuroscience, using fMRI scans, has shown that when you read a compelling description of a character running, the motor cortex in your brain, the part that controls running ... lights up. When you read about a character smelling a flower, your olfactory cortex activates. And when you read about a character's heartbreak, your emotional pathways, the same ones that fire when you are sad, light up. Your brain simulates the experience. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it experience taking. It is the phenomenon where a reader or a viewer can temporarily lose themselves in a character. You don't just watch the character, you become them. You absorb their traits, their thoughts, and most importantly, their emotions. This is why, when you finish a great novel, you feel a little lost. You feel a sense of mourning. You miss the characters as if you have lost real friends. You have, for a time, in the deep, quiet, magical theater of your mind, they were real. You lived another life. That life leaves an emotional residue, a beautiful scar, a borrowed memory. This is why your anemoia feels so real, because the emotion you are remembering is real. You did feel that ache. You did feel that joy. You did feel that longing. Your brain, in its wisdom, has cataloged that real emotion and attached it to the sights and sounds of the story that gave it to you. This, perhaps, is our modern way of connecting to the heroic age that the poet Hesiod described. We look back at the myths of Achilles and Heracles and Oedipus, and we wonder why our own lives feel so small in comparison. Their lives were not better. They were often cruel. Heracles' life was one of atonement for a madness in which he killed his family. Oedipus, in seeking the truth, was destroyed by it. Their lives were filled with blood and sorrow, but their lives had meaning. Their suffering was epic. Their fates were long foretold, carved into flesh and stone. They were not victims of random chance. They were players in a grand cosmic drama, watched by the gods themselves. We live in the Iron Age, an age of sorrow and toil. But most of all, an age where the gods, if they still watch, do so with silence. Our suffering feels small. It feels random. It feels mundane. When we suffer, it is not because a god has cursed our bloodline. It is because of a spreadsheet, or a text message, or a chemical imbalance. We are starving for narrative clarity, and so we create it. We borrow it. We become experience takers. We visit the rooms in our minds where stories still have that grand mythic weight. Your anemoia is not a homesickness for the past. It is a homesickness for meaning. You are not haunted by a time. You are haunted by art. The familiar stranger is a character you loved. The borrowed ghost is a story that moved you. And the home you are missing is a feeling that a screenwriter, a novelist, or a musician crafted so perfectly that it became a part of your own soul. This is not a flaw. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of a deep, beautiful, and empathetic mind. It is a sign that you are a person who engages with stories and allows them to change you. It is okay to visit these rooms. It is a comfort. It is a sign that you are human. So, we have walked together through the quiet, hazy rooms of this strange and beautiful feeling. We have stood in the Curated Gallery and seen the beautiful lie we tell ourselves. The golden age we paint to find a safe harbor from our relentless, chaotic Iron Age. We saw how our mind, in an act of profound self-care, builds a sanctuary from a past that has been dead long enough to become perfect. A story that is safe because it is already finished. We have wandered the halls of the borrowed memory. We saw that our minds do not draw a sharp line between a life we lived and a story we felt. We are haunted by art, by films, by novels. We are homesick for the noble, bittersweet ache of Casablanca, for the grand, mythic meaning of the heroic age. We long for a world where our suffering might feel epic, not small, where our fates might be long foretold, instead of feeling random and mundane. And we have stood at the edge of the deepest, quietest, and most magical possibility, the genetic echo. The idea that our homesickness is not a lie, and not borrowed, but inherited. That our DNA is a living library, and we are hearing the faint cellular whisper of our ancestors. A whisper that remembers the rhythm of the Golden Age, a deep pre-industrial peace, a world free from pain and unburdened by toil. It is not so important which of these answers is the correct one. The truth, like all deep truths, is likely a beautiful, complex blend of all three. Your anemoia is a protest against the Iron Age. It is a longing for the narrative clarity of the heroic age. And it is a deep cellular echo of the Golden Age. What is important, what I want you to feel as you lie here in the quiet, is that this strange, sepia-toned homesickness is not a sickness at all. It is not a flaw in your mind. It is not a sign that you are broken, or living in a fantasy, or failing to cope with the modern world. It is a gift. It is, perhaps, the most profound sign of a deep and sensitive and truly human soul. A soul that is listening. A soul that is attuned to the echoes that others, in their rush and their noise, do not hear. You are not living in the wrong time. You are simply a person who is remembering what our Iron Age has forgotten. This whole journey, this whole feeling, is not really about the past. It is about the present. You are not truly longing for the 1920s or the 1950s, or even the age of Greek heroes. You are longing for the qualities you have projected onto those times. What are those qualities? You are longing for meaning. A feeling that your life is not just a random series of events, but part of a grand, important story, like the heroes of old. You are longing for connection, a deep analog warmth, a world where people looked at each other, where a touch was electric, where you could be truly known. You are longing for peace, a world without the 24-hour hum of anxiety, a world without the glowing screen, a world where you could experience the golden age feeling of just being. You are longing for beauty and romance, a world that still believes in grand gestures, in mystery, in things that are not easily explained. The past you long for is not a time or a place. It is a feeling. It is the feeling of belonging, the feeling of depth, the feeling of home. And the beauty of this feeling, the profound comfort in this gentle ache ... is that it proves you are a creature who longs. It proves you have not given up. It proves you are an artist, a dreamer, a storyteller, in a world that lies ... many oaths ... cheap, a world that desperately needs them. So tonight, if you are lying in bed and you hear that old song from a time you never knew, or you see that old photograph and the strange, sweet ache of Anemoia returns, do not push it away. Do not analyze it. Do not feel ashamed of it. Welcome it. It is a quiet visitor. It is just the past whispering to you. It is not asking you to leave the present. It is just gently reminding you of what is timeless: meaning, connection, peace, beauty, and the search for those things that is the most human and hopeful story of all. Good night.